Madam Clerk, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. It's working now. Thank you very much.
The live stream is just loading.
Madam Clerk, can you?
Oh,
I think she was on mute,
yes, I think she was on mute.
talking through the phone.
So we are live. And I suppose we can begin.
Okay. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting of July 13th, 2020 to order. Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul McPherson, Counselor and Chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. We are meeting electronically through Zoom, and this is our first Committee of the Whole meeting during this declared emergency period. Members of the public may observe the proceedings by accessing the live webcast on our YouTube channel. Move to roll call. I will ask our Deputy Clerk to complete a roll call of council so that we can confirm quorum. Trish, please go ahead.
All right, please unmute yourselves as I call your name. Mayor Easton,
Present.
Councilor Rinjima,
Present.
Councilor Russell,
Present.
Councilor Brunei,
Present.
Councilor Pachariva,
I'm here.
Councilor McPherson,
Here.
Councilor Mikulik,
Here.
Councilor Timmers,
Here.
and Councilor Reimer,
Here.
all in attendance.
In addition, I want to take a minute to welcome the staff. We have joining us today electronically, Chief Administrative Officer Mike Kirkopoulos, Finance Treasurer Terry Tuwala, Director of Planning and Development Kathleen Dale, Associate Director of Planning and Development Matt Bruder, Director of Community Services Shannon McKay, Fire Chief Greg Hudson, Economic Development Officer Paul Deaney, Director of Public Works Dave Graham, and moderating and clerking the meeting today, we have our Deputy Clerk Trish Sarnicki. We also have, I believe, Legislative Coordinator Aaron Plant. Is that Plant or Plant?
Plant, Councilor.
Plant, okay. And our IT staff taking care of all of us in attendance is Matt Guadagnolo and Devin Linton. As this is a virtual meeting, I will ask that we follow some procedures during this electronic meeting. Should there be a connection or service disruption for the chair, or if quorum is lost, the chair and/or clerk will call a 10-minute recess to reconnect to regain quorum. If quorum is lost, the meeting will be adjourned. If connection is lost from the chair, the clerk will ask those in attendance to wait up to 10 minutes to provide the chair time to reconnect and resume the meeting. Otherwise, after that time frame, the vice chair will resume the meeting until the chair has reconnected and resumes their role. Each member of council who wishes to speak, please raise the hand feature on your video call, and the clerk will track our speakers list today and then invite you to speak when I open it for comments or questions. Also, when I finish reading a motion and announcing the mover, the clerk will then call out the vote by reading each member of council's name out loud. Please remember to take yourselves off mute during this portion of the meeting so that you can confirm if you are yay or nay. Also, when not speaking, please remember to put yourselves on mute. Moving to declarations of interest, are there any declarations of interest? Madam Clerk, seeing none?
None.
Okay, we move to confirmation of the agenda. Please note we have a motion to amend the order of the agenda items this evening. It is requested that we consider the Community Services and Infrastructure agenda first as item 6, followed by the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda as item 7, and then the General Business and Finance agenda as item 8. For the Community Services and Infrastructure agenda, registered delegations will be considered first, with item 8.4, regional update regarding community safety and face coverings to follow. And finally, the consent agenda item. Amending the order requires a majority vote. I will ask our I will now ask our clerk to call out the vote. Trish, go ahead.
Thank you. Please unmute yourselves as I call out your name. Councillor Brunei,
Yay.
Councillor McPherson,
Yay.
Councillor Mikulik,
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva,
Yay.
Councillor Reimer,
Yay.
Councillor Rinjma,
Yay.
Councillor Russell,
Yay.
Councillor Timmers,
Yay.
Mayor Easton,
Support.
and that is carried.
Do members have any other amendments to the order of the agenda? Seeing none. We move to item 5, statutory public meetings. We have no statutory public meetings. Although there are no statutory public meetings occurring for this evening's committee of the whole meeting, staff have established procedures for the public to participate at future meetings. Information is available on our town website, and any future notices of public meetings will also provide direction on how the public can participate. As per the amended order council agreed to, we will now rotate to allow Chair Ujima to assume the chair at this time for the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda. Councillor Ujima, take it away.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. We have 2 delegations this evening for Community Services and Infrastructure Committee joining by video. Please note that each delegation can speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. The clerk will be notifying you when your time limit has been reached. Before we begin with the delegations, I know that the CAO has a few comments to share. Mr. CAO, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to Mayor Easton and all of council. I just want to introduce our 2 speakers who are here to talk about masks. Everyone will know Anna Murray. She is the Executive Director of the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce and has been working closely in polling her members this evening, and she will share a little bit of the data and the information that she's been able to garner as it relates to this topic. And Stephanie Hicks, who is the Executive Director of the Beamsville Downtown BIA. And similarly, she will be sharing some information on community safety and face coverings. I did just want to provide a brief summary of, I think, where we find ourselves right now. This topic is a topic that has been incredibly newsworthy over the last number of weeks, with a number of municipalities either debating or deliberating over this particular topic. Here within the context of Niagara, there was a discussion at Regional Council last week, and that was deferred and will once again be dealt with in the coming week for a potential decision. And either way, we are waiting anxiously, I think, to hear what Niagara as a whole will decide. There are some municipalities that are considering masks in the making, or the mandatory nature of mask wearing, in particular St. Catharines. And I think on tonight's agenda at a few councils, it's also being discussed. But at the end of the day, I think from our perspective, we do welcome the feedback that we've been getting. I know members of council have been getting feedback over the weekend and over the last number of days, both from residents and businesses. And I think we're cognizant, we're sympathetic, we're aware of both the concerns and a little bit of the confusion that's out there from those businesses and from those residents. And so tonight, I think we're going to hear a little bit of that community dialogue from 2 of our stakeholder groups. I did update members of council a little earlier today. And in that update, I spoke a little bit about what is being discussed in various municipalities. And I'll just reiterate that now for those watching. I highlighted that this is a proposed temporary bylaw that is being considered both within Niagara region and across the broader province and the GTHA. It is about looking at face coverings in indoor spaces and indoor public spaces, and it is temporary in nature. And so I do highlight those particular things, as I think they're important things to make clear. There is new information, I think, constantly evolving. And so I think we're often asked, why are we considering this now collectively as governments versus earlier on. And I think it is really just the nature of the new information that comes out on a regular basis. And I think the collective desire of everybody to adapt and respond as quickly as possible. Again, this is a complicated topic. I think it's generated a lot of conversation around many tables, whether at home or in your business. Here within, again, the Niagara context, the medical officer of health has not taken a position from the perspective of highlighting or pointing to the fact that masks are in any way mandated within our local jurisdictions. And I think for that reason, a lot of councils are looking to deal with this. From the town's perspective, I can tell council that we've put standard operating procedures in place and have worked very closely both with the medical officer of health and the Ministry of Labor, specific to our own staff and what would dictate wearing masks in certain situations or positions that staff would find themselves in when they're in close proximity. But at the end of the day, I think as I ended my comments to council, I'll end my comments here and turn it over to our two delegates by saying that whatever decision we make, whatever decision we decide to move forward with as a collective, we do need to recognize that not everyone will be able to wear a mask. Some have certain restrictions or disabilities that would inhibit them from doing so. And so I think we need to encourage our neighbors, our residents, our community to be kind, to be compassionate, to offer assistance and understanding rather than judgment on this particular topic. So those are a few thoughts. And now I will turn it back over to the chair to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Mr. Kakopoulos. Our first delegation is Anna Murray, Executive Director from the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, delegating to the regional update regarding community safety and face coverings. Ms. Murray, please go ahead.
Oh, I think she's on mute.
Sorry, it took a little bit to find that unmute button. My apologies. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. One of the roles of the Chamber is to represent businesses in Lincoln, and I appreciate Mayor Easton's request to address you today on behalf of our members. When asked simply if they would support a mandatory face covering bylaw, our membership was split, with 59% of respondents saying yes and 41% voting no. Those in favor of a mandatory face covering bylaw share their concerns regarding the severity of the pandemic, especially the second wave, that could very well be worse than what we've seen so far. They have provided research as to how the virus is spread and the efficacy of face coverings in conjunction with other measures in slowing that spread. They share their frustration with those who refuse to take the risk seriously and do not follow current guidelines. And they cite the need for governments at all levels to take on a leadership role in ensuring that consumers in our community are protected and to follow the example of other jurisdictions who have moved forward with a similar bylaw and pointing to the success of those initiatives. The perspective of those not in favor of putting a bylaw like this in place also centers around efficacy, not of wearing masks, but of the bylaw itself. They don't feel that enforcement is feasible and that attempting enforcement cannot be cost effective. They don't, after months of not being able to provide their services, they worry that the costs and limitations of a bylaw like this will further negatively impact their business. They note that many sectors are already mandated to require face coverings and that each business already has the right to restrict access and refuse service to anyone behaving in an unsafe or inappropriate manner. They request the right to be able to choose the best options for their particular customer and their particular business, and express the view that it is the government's role to provide guidelines, regulations, and monitoring, and then step back and allow businesses to create innovative solutions within those parameters. Our intent here today is not to just state the problem and then push it back at regional or municipal councils to find a way to make it all work. We recognize that these are two very different perspectives and that no matter what decision is made on the bylaw, there will be a large part of our community who are convinced you've done it wrong. So with that in mind, we explored possible initiatives that would achieve what we see as our common goals. which include continuing to effectively flatten the curve through increased compliance with all current health guidelines that limit the spread of COVID-19, and allowing the reactivation of our local economy by enabling businesses to create a safe environment for both their employees and customers while they reopen their physical spaces to the public. To achieve these goals, we suggest a three-pronged approach, regardless of whether a mandatory mask bylaw is adopted or not. One would be increased support. Resources, either regionally or municipally, devoted to supporting reopening businesses within the context of COVID-19. Health inspectors or other staff with additional training, robust, clear guidelines, and assistance for business with respect to the interpretation and implementation of the latest COVID-19 health and safety guidelines for their specific situations. Number two would be increased resources for businesses to share with the public how they are working within the guidelines. We have heard that many who support mandatory masks are experiencing increased anxiety and fear as they interact within public settings. They are concerned about how businesses are protecting them and what steps are being taken to ensure that they are not being put at risk. Providing businesses with customizable templates, signs, or other ways to share with the public how they are putting their safety first may help to both alleviate the stress of consumers and also reinforce to the public and fellow business owners how important these precautions are in preventing the spread of the virus. And third would be increased ongoing public education. We've seen how effective the current health guidelines are in flattening the curve in our region, and this is no time to let our guard down. We must remain vigilant, and we know that behavior becomes ingrained with positive reinforcement. We suggest partnering with the local business community and using them as a vehicle for continuing to promote health and safety guidelines. The Regional Public Health Department and the Town of Lincoln have both promoted this information, but if a member of the public isn't tapped into that particular communication network, they may not be getting the most reliable and relevant information. Providing promotional materials, information, and signage to be distributed via retail or service businesses in our community will increase their reach and the knowledge of best practices for the public to follow. The Lincoln Chamber of Commerce is actively working to support our members during this crisis, are committed to the health and safety of our community, and we look forward to working with the town and other partners to create solutions that will move us all forward into recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Are there any questions from council? And a reminder that you will each be called upon a maximum of 2 times if you indicate that you have questions to ask of Ms. Murray regarding the content of her delegation. And also a reminder that we do have on the agenda tonight for information the report that regional councillors received last Wednesday. And we will have an opportunity to ask questions at that time. At this time, questions will be directed to Ms. Murray. Madam Clerk, do we have any questions from committee?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Russell has his hand up first.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Russell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Murray. Thank you very much for the delegation and the comments. My question revolves around that split. I think you said it was 59-41, 41% that were against. Do you have any information or insight you can provide about what type of businesses were in that 41%? And the reason I ask is, again, I've got some concerns about some of our struggling food service businesses and some of our wineries and whatnot that rely on tourism. Now that phase 3 looks like it's probably going to be sometime next week. Again, we can start cultivating some of that revenue through the indoor space. I wonder how having a mask or mandatory mask bylaw might handicap, for lack of a better term, some of those potential customers coming in and what that experience might be going forward. So can you, any insight into that?
Yes, so we did keep in mind that this is not an exhaustive poll. It was voluntary, so we were just relying on people who chose to respond. And we have approximately 20 industries represented within this. And if you're looking at either tourism or restaurants, give me 1 second. We had, that was pretty closely split too. 5% of the respondents out of 11 saying that they would support a mandatory mask, and 6 out of the 11 saying they would not. The comments received on that, I think, are valid to what you were saying, that they really are concerned that it's just so challenging for their for their staff to be able to maintain the face coverings. And they don't understand how it's going to work in terms of people at their coming in, how they would have to wear masks. I want to also throw out there that I think a big part of this whole question is people don't know what you mean by a mandatory mask bylaw. They don't. I know that when you read the document, it does talk about where physical distancing is not possible. People are really unsure about what that means, and they're not sure what that will look like within the context of their business, which is why I was thinking that increased education as to what that looks like in specific settings would be helpful.
Thank you, Ms. Mary. And again, I think that, again, the comment about what that experience might be like for those customers, imagine a table of 6 family members come into one of our local establishments for dinner. Again, how do you actually have dinner with masks on? Is that mask bylaw essentially dispensed for that half hour or hour engagement, or is it something that you can't work around it? That's just a general question.
Can I also I don't know the answer to that question, but what I will share is that those in the hospitality and restaurant business have said their hospitality, it is so difficult to be hospitable with your face covered.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. And if I may, I believe I read in the proposed bylaw that those that are sitting, dining in a patio, the diners don't have to wear face coverings, but the servers would. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, who was next?
Next up, we have Mayor Easton.
Thank you, Mayor Easton. Go ahead.
Just unmute.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much, Ms. Murray, for coming in. And it may be the first time that I can recall that you actually came to delegate, and what an important reason for you to come. So thank you very much for that. I have a question. Of the 49 people that said no, do you have a sense of whether or not, just because people say no, that they would refuse to wear a mask? Or is it really for the reasons that you've already outlined that they would not support a mandate?
It is very much not that they do not want to wear masks. It is that they do not want to be forced to insist that people in their establishment wear masks. And a lot of that then is again about specific situations that in certain settings, they don't feel it's necessary. For instance, one of the people who responded owns a B&B and said that their clientele can spend most of the time within their facility without coming into particularly close contact. They also are worried about the enforcement piece and how across Niagara, if Lincoln, for instance, does not have one, but St. Catharines does, and you've got tourists coming in from outside, they'll be very confused. So I think it was much more about it being mandatory, not about how great it would be to wear masks. I don't think that they're against masks, they're against the mandatory piece.
And so would it be a stretch through you, Madam Chair, if I suggested that of the 41% that say no, that there very well could be 50 or 51% of those people who would wear a mask in the appropriate setting? Do you have any sense of that at all?
And that question is directed to Ms. Murray, Madam Chair?
Yes.
I mean, Madam Mayor. Okay, Ms. Murray, go
Yes.
ahead.
I would suggest that yes, I have not heard feedback saying I don't want to wear a mask at all.
Okay, so we could very well be faced, we could actually have 75 or 80% of people wearing masks without having to take any extraordinary measures.
I think that for a lot of business owners that we spoke to, one of the things that they suggested was that wearing masks within their establishments could be a trade differentiator. So if you have clientele who prefer to shop where there's where there are people wearing masks, they will go to the people who are allowing or encouraging or insisting on masks. And those who do not will go to those businesses who aren't insisting. And that it's like any other free trade thing. If you're doing what most people want, that's where they're going to go shop.
Right, okay, because Madam Chair, I certainly had, in the back of my mind is the whole investment that we've made in Shop Local. And I was very pleased, Ms. Mary, to hear about the initiatives that came through the business community around support and resources and public education, because we will certainly need to come together, make a commitment, collective commitment to work together to achieve those. And if I heard you correctly, business community is willing to do that.
Yes, very much so.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor McPherson is next. Go ahead, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a quick question through to Anna. I might have missed the total number of participants in your survey. How many were there?
70 people responded.
Okay. Okay, so.
And if I can just clarify, so 70 people, all representing individual businesses and all representing businesses.
And you did not get into any detail, I would think, about what those resources that you talk about would look like.
Not within the polling, no.
Yeah,
However, yeah, not within the polling.
You know, is it somebody that's you know, wandering through the businesses and just checking to see the things, or is it people that are stationed within the business, forcing people to put masks on, if it was to go that way? Is that what they're looking for, or would they govern themselves, do you think?
I would suggest that it's not forcing. I think it's much more so that, and there's a couple of different resources, so I may be a little bit confused as to your question. So when we're talking about the additional support and resources, what we hear from people is people are confused and they want to do the right thing within their businesses and they're not sure. The guidelines are very broad, and they call me and say, okay, but on my patio, how does that work on my patio in this way? And they're not sure who to reach, and they call public health, and public health says, you know, you should check out the Ontario site, or you should look here. And they're not getting somebody who will sit down with them and say, okay, in this context, this is how you would meet those guidelines. Okay, so that's more what we are looking for.
All right, that helps. It's not actually human resource. It's more, they need clarity on what the rules are. And
yes,
how to apply the rules. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. And then I have Councillor Timmers next. Go ahead, Councillor Timmers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Murray. Thank you very much for being here this evening, Anna. I just want to clarify, let's just go back to the numbers again, the 41% who said no. I just want to clarify. So you're saying that the 41% are not saying no to masks. They're just saying no to being mandated.
Exactly.
So you take out the mandated part, the 41% would be agreeable to wearing masks.
That was not the specific question that was asked. So I can't say that 100% of those would say, oh, I'll wear a mask. But the majority of discussion and commentary that we had was not against wearing masks, but was against making it mandatory.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to be clear on that. And just a follow up to Councillor McPherson, I had questions around that too. So it seems that the businesses need clear guidelines of how it's going to work, when they wear them, how they wear them. That's what you're looking for public information or education.
Yes, and so for a lot of people, that the phone calls that I'm getting is they say, I went to the website, I went to the public health website, I went to the Ontario website, but this is how my business is different. So how do I interpret those guidelines? So it is very much about having somebody who can sit down with them and just answer questions.
So it sounds like they need a one-on-one specific to their business.
So the example that I was given was that people who own hair salons or nail salons or restaurants know who their public health inspector is, and they can call that public health inspector and say, I've got a question about this. They're looking for something along those lines.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Councillor Timmers. Next, Councillor Mikulik has a question for Ms. Murray.
Hi there. Thank you, Anna, for taking the time to do that poll and survey your members. I just have a question of those 59 businesses that are in favor of a mandatory mask bylaw. do they currently have rules in place to encourage customers or folks to wear a mask right now?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. So do you mean, are they part of an industry that is mandated to wear masks? Or do you mean, are they currently encouraging their clientele to wear masks regardless of whether they have to?
Regardless of whether they have to, similar to a no shirt, no shoes, no service policy, right? Like where if you want to shop or if you want to be in my store or business, here's a mask for you to wear.
So I don't have that specific information because again, the question, we didn't do an in-depth poll because we didn't really have time to be honest.
Yeah.
But again, some of the feedback that we had was that, you know what? I don't have an answer to that question, sorry.
It's just, and if I may, thank you, Chair. I just, there's nothing stopping these businesses right now, I believe, to implement that sort of house rule. So I'm just, if there is a willingness or a desire to mandate, my thoughts would be that it would be currently suggested or offered at the door. But again, this is pretty new to myself, so.
So of those respondents who said that they would support a mandatory mask, I'm looking at them and I would say 25% of them are in industries where masks are like that particular industry requires mask wearing. And I do know that there was some discussion about this idea that you can refuse service. However, that can sometimes be challenging. I think we've all seen on social media where there can be backlash against certain people who feel that their rights have been violated or who feel that someone isn't being safe. So both sides of the story. So there are some businesses who are reluctant to have to police that themselves.
And I appreciate that. It's an extremely polarizing, complicated subject, and I'm just curious the questions you asked. Thank you very much, Chair Rinja.
Thank you, Councillor Mikulik. A comment toward that thought is that some might say that having legislation in place takes the burden off of the individual businesses to enforce. It becomes something that is beyond their control, and it's been put in place by the municipality and not the business itself. But just a comment. Do I have any other questions for Ms. Murray? I don't think I do. So thank you very much, Anna. Our second delegation is Stephanie Hicks, Executive Director of the Beamsville Downtown BIA, delegating also to the regional update regarding community safety and face coverings. Ms. Hicks, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for having me this evening. The information that I'm about to provide you with, which is a lot of stats, it was gathered mostly Friday and Monday, and that was based on the times of being notified of delegating to council. So if you just bear with me on these numbers. So I'll start out by saying I started with our business list of about 120 businesses. These are specific to the downtown. So our catchment area, what qualifies as downtown businesses. Out of those numbers, about 4% were not pooled because they were either our MP or our MPP or the Fleming Center, the museum here. 19% were not asked questions because they're not open yet. Their service is either all online or they're not open to the public. And 32% of those businesses, they're governed by their own licenses or the province. So for example, all of our doctors, chiropractors, spas, hair salons. So none of those businesses were asked the 4 questions that I asked of the remaining 45% of businesses. So 45% of businesses, which include our restaurants, grocery, automotive services, or just other services such as a pet store or grooming services, things like that. I asked 4 questions of our businesses. The first question being, are masks mandatory for customers to wear? So of that 45%, 80% said no, masks were not mandatory, and 20% had a yes. The next question asked was, does your staff wear a mask? 33% was a no, and 67% was yes. The next question asked was, have you installed something such as an additional wall or plexiglass at your point of sale purchase station? 24% have not installed anything. 76% have. And the last question that was asked was, would you like masks to be mandatory? And based on the previous conversation or Anna's presentation, I'll reiterate, the question was, would you like them to be mandatory, not whether they are in favor or not of it, just would they like a mandatory bylaw? And 57% said no, 30% said yes, but of that, about 13% did not want to answer because they have corporate head offices or they didn't want to speak on behalf of that head office or flagship of their company. So those were the questions asked, and these were asked either on the phone or through email. Some were via social media. We had some businesses reply back, and then some conversations that surrounded those 4 questions. A lot of businesses said that they would like to see some more education on social distancing specifically, even though they're wearing masks and they have social distance signage up. It's the public really isn't obeying these. It's difficult to obey the social distancing and arrows on the floor. You know, a lot of times a customer will go past something and then remember that they forgot something just literally within their eyes reach and kind of scoot back. And currently that's supposed to be against the rules. So more education. Another member said that perhaps the municipalities can advocate for free masks, so it's more of an incentive in the region for people to wear masks. A lot of businesses indicated that it should be up to the individual business, should they want to implement that, similar to a no shirt, no shoes, no service. Some restaurants said that it would help with their staff issues if it was mandatory, because we have a lot of businesses that actually their staff are not feeling comfortable that masks are not mandatory. So they're having difficulty hiring staff, keeping staff, having staff come in for shifts, as well as on the flip side, staff that don't want to wear the masks. There is an issue that children do not wear their masks properly and parents aren't correcting it. And the last comment came up was the health and safety of the business. So if the region does make mask wearing mandatory, how is the business going to enforce that? If a customer does refuse to wear a mask, how does a business owner handle that situation safely for their customers and for their own safety? So there is concern on how a business could even handle that situation. And yeah, that's what I have.
Thank you, Ms. Hicks. Are there any questions from council? And a reminder that you each have 2 opportunities to ask questions of Ms. Hicks regarding the content of her delegation. Thank you. I have Councillor Mikulik. Go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair and Gemma, through you to Ms. Hicks. I just thank you for coming. Thank you for taking the time to provide us with this information and your report and your polling survey results. I'm just curious, was there any concern about the shop local? And, one thing that I've learned during this pandemic is that I can shop on the internet. I can get whatever I want with or without a mask and have it delivered to my door. Is this a concern with members of the BIA that this sort of behavior will continue? And is there any fear that the mask debate or issue will have an effect be it good or bad? Like what was the thoughts on the internet and how many of us may be choosing a new way of shopping?
Through you, Madam Chair, although that really didn't come up in this particular poll, but I will speak on just through this pandemic as a whole and speaking to businesses. So we have seen a great deal of support local with this pandemic, which has been great. And we do anticipate that will continue on through future, because people have been very sympathetic to the business community. Our businesses wear their hearts on their sleeves. So people want to support local. There's a huge urge to support local right now. I know myself in particular, I try and support local when I can, but there are certain things that I've made even more of an effort to support local during this time. And that's what we are seeing. So that has been on the increase, as well as people feel safe seeing that the business owners and their staff are wearing masks. So that does help the community, make a decision whether they're going to go in wearing a mask or not. It does make them feel more comfortable that the staff and owners are wearing masks and that there's plexiglass up, and they do have a comfort level there. So that's as best as I can answer that for you.
And thank you for that. And my point is that I love shopping local. I love the human interaction. I love meeting people, seeing people. I love the smile on their face. But I also respect one another, that, should a business owner request me to wear a mask, I'd be more than happy to, satisfy that requirement. But I just want to make sure that there's a comfort level amongst everyone, whether there is a mask bylaw or whether there isn't one. And I just, I'm not sure if there's any fear, whether a mask bylaw would possibly discourage that sort of human interaction that, we as a small town, I particularly enjoy. So I wasn't, I'm just trying to get an idea of the local business community on that regard. So thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Councillor Mikulik. And next I have Councillor Brunet. Go ahead, Councillor Brunet.
Thank you, Chair Rinjma. Through you to Stephanie. Thank you for the delegation. So I just wanted to, and I know probably your answer on this, but I'm going to try it anyway. So you had a large section of businesses that weren't polled, 4%, 19% weren't asked because they weren't open, and then 32% because they have their own licenses in terms of doctors, spas, and chiro. I know you didn't ask them the 4 questions, but do you have a sense from interacting with these businesses? I mean, I know for myself, I'm still calling my doctor's office and everything is done over the phone. I can't get in to see my doctor. I get a prescription filled. They call the pharmacy and I pick it up. I know I've seen a chiropractor twice in the last week, and it's like Fort Knox. You can't get in the front door till somebody walks out. They're making masks mandatory, and they're providing, all the sanitation. So, I mean, that's a big number. I just don't see that sector having any issues with that. I just wonder if you could comment on that. If we were moving into phase 3 right now, where gyms and spas and everything were going to be wide open, I wonder what we would be hearing from that sector.
So through you, Madam Chair, you're correct. I can't really comment on that 32%. And if there was more time, I definitely would have included them in these conversations, because it would be interesting to hear their perspective. But I also think you're correct that I don't see them lifting. Perhaps hair salons and spas would definitely, if they could eliminate the mask issue, they would. I know it's difficult. I myself have finally got my hair done since January, and it's very difficult for the person to get around your mask and your ears and such. So they may, but I don't I think doctors' offices and chiropractors, I think they're quite comfortable having that safety barrier, and especially a lot of their clientels are the seniors. So you have to do, you know, you all have to see a doctor. So if it's mandatory, you will still continue to use your doctor. So I don't anticipate doctors and chiropractors, they won't be losing any business because of this. So it just makes sense that they would just want to keep it mandatory. That last part's my personal opinion.
Yes, yes. I just have one other question, Madam Chair, through you. So the 45% that you did talk to, you said a lot of them were restaurants. I didn't ask Anna a question, but I just want to make sure that we're clear, because when the CAO gave his prelude to the meeting, he definitely mentioned two things. One was that this would be temporary, and the other thing is that we're talking, inside. The nature is inside. So, when we're talking to restaurants or wineries that have already opened up their outside patios, we weren't polling them, were we? Because this really is about an inside a bylaw, if I understand the CAO. Just wanted to clarify that.
Sorry, Councillor Benet, is that a question for Ms. Hicks?
Either Anna or Stephanie, but I was directing it to Stephanie. Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Through you, Madam Chair. This was actually still based on outside for restaurants, as most of those calls were made Friday, and the phase 3 coming announcement didn't come till after. But as far as the restaurants go, the majority of them were not for the mandatory mask wearing. It is difficult in a restaurant setting. So in indoor or outdoor, I think they would be okay with not having mandatory masks.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Benet. I have Mayor Easton yet, but I want to clarify something first for those that are watching. I just wanted to make it clear that this is not a report of the town of Lincoln that's before us tonight that Ms. Murray and Ms. Hicks are delegating to. It's a report that was brought to the regional council last Wednesday, and it's brought to us for information. So we'll be discussing it, but there is no decision that this council is making tonight. Madam Mayor, you're next.
You're on mute, Madam Mayor.
You're on mute, Madam Mayor. There you go.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I have a question of both the delegations around the corporations. And how would they define that barrier? Should we understand that some corporations actually have a policy that would say that their staff are not required to wear masks, or that their patrons should not wear a mask? What should we understand from that?
Madam Mayor, are you referring to, I believe, Ms. Hicks, when she started talking, she said that some businesses within the BIA didn't want to comment because they perhaps are franchises and they have upper levels in their company and they didn't want to speak on their behalf. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, but I'm also curious to know whether Ms. Murray also spoke to people that would fall into that category.
Okay, thank you. So Ms. Hicks, if you want to answer that question, can you?
Through you, Madam Chair, I can't answer. What I can tell you is it is a hot topic. So even contacting the businesses, I had to assure them that it would be an anonymous answer because it is such a hot topic. So the 12% that had a franchise or corporate head offices, just first of all, the people answering the phone are management of those. You don't get the owner of those businesses, or it's rare that you would get the owner. So with what I could, they just didn't want to be the spokesperson on behalf of that, and I respected that. I don't know
But-
about Anna though, so Anna can Anna can answer the part on the chamber if it was any corporate.
Madam Chair, I'm not seeking any specific information. I was just looking to see if there was anything at all, any sense of what was really directing that. And I base this in the context of the Shop Local initiative that the town and the local businesses have been engaged in. So Anna, to you then, do you have any, is there any further insight that you can add to this?
That was not a question that we asked, and I would hesitate to speak on behalf of them because we didn't discuss that specifically.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much. Madam Chair, could I ask Ms. Hicks if, what her impression is around some of the comments related to providing help? And is it that the businesses feel that their confidence levels would be improved if the town were engaging with them to help them, educate them on how to manage these one-to-one situations? Is that what the intentions are around that looking for help situation leads to?
Ms.
So,
Hicks?
yep, through you, Madam Chair. My understanding from the businesses that spoke about needing help is just mostly with the social distancing and how they can, a lot of them have, there are one staff or two staff, so how they can be at the counter, but also monitoring people to make sure that they're being 6 feet apart in the store. I think it's just a matter, they're not necessarily looking for the town help. They were just in conversation, like, how can we work together to educate people more? I know that the town is doing a great job on their social media, providing, reminding people to socially distance. The BIA, we have delivered kits to our businesses that have social distance in effect decals and the 6 feet apart footprints for our membership. And it's still not working for a lot of businesses. And a lot of it is just, it's the habit. People, we're not in that habit yet. We were on lockdown and then things opened up and you kind of went back to how you used to shop and shop local. So I mean, I think that's a much larger conversation. We didn't get much into it because these conversations happened Friday and today, unfortunately. So I think it was definitely an eye opener from the BIA side that I can work with the businesses individually on how to help educate people. And I guess I would just say for future, perhaps I can work with the town of Lincoln on future recommendations on how we can help businesses. At this point, I don't have any suggestions. It's just that seems to be the number one issue, is not even, people are wearing masks, but then they're not social distancing, and that's starting to affect people as well. And then the other part to advocate for free masks, just that was one particular business that thought maybe if the region was providing some free masks to people, it'd be more of an incentive to wear them. So it was just for them to provide feedback.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I've certainly had feedback from people who say that until the situation with the wearing of masks improves in certain retail areas, that they're not shopping in town. So I think there is an impact that we need to be concerned around the shop local. I want to thank you, Stephanie, for going to the extent that you did to collect this information. It was very short notice. However, the timing of having you and Anna come and speak to us was extremely important. It wouldn't have been nearly as impactful a week or a week and a half from now. So thank you very, very much for making this a meaningful experience.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Pachariva next. Go ahead, Councillor Pachariva.
Thanks, Chairman Shima. I guess a question first to Ms. Hicks. And I guess this goes to both you and Anna. Were the questions that you asked your businesses the same? So did you guys ask the same 4 questions to the businesses you polled?
Through you, Madam Chair. No, we did not.
Okay, so I mean, to be, having worked in StatsCan, to be statistically in tune, we should have probably looked at asking the same questions, because I mean, we took the dogs for a walk downtown yesterday and knowing that this was coming, and 90% of the businesses on King Street have signs up that say, you need to have a mask to come in. I find it somewhat laughable that the healthcare sector, so your chiropractors, your doctors, your dentists, your optometrists who I deal with, ask that you wear a mask. It's about people that are asymptomatic and not knowing about it and could be carrying the virus around. There's an article in the Standard tonight about Lynnhaven and the fact that masks on there prevented a bigger outbreak. So I think, and I'm going to ask this to our CAO and maybe our chair of ECDEV or Mr. Deanne about education. So I think there's still an education piece that we need to do with the businesses. So the healthcare sector, they get it. But we need to educate our other businesses on why we're doing that. And Mayor Easton alluded to it. There's residents here that don't feel safe because of the different standards that you get from each business. So I appreciate that you ladies have done the work, and it was a short timeline, but I think there's some room here to maneuver. So, Mr. CAO, or through you, the chair,
So
to the CAO. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Petrie. We do have a report coming up later on in the agenda, at which time we can ask questions of the CAO and Mayor Easton. So I think those kinds of questions would be appropriate at that time.
Okay.
Right now, the questions will be directed to our delegates. Is that everything, Councillor Pachariva? Okay, I don't see anybody else. Oh, Mr. Kakopoulos has a comment. Go ahead, Mr. Kakopoulos.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think just the only comment that I would offer to both our delegates who are here, and I think it goes without saying because we've got a good, positive working relationship with both of them, is that if there is any assistance that is required, not to hesitate to reach out to myself or any of our staff here, Mr. Deanne, or others that can assist on a number of fronts, both with the issue around masks, public education, or anything else that may arise. So I didn't want either Stephanie or Anna to leave without, I think, hearing that yet again.
Thank you. And thank you again to both of you for delegating to us tonight. Important conversations to have, and we appreciate it. We really do. This concludes the delegations portion of the agenda, and I have a motion moved by Councillor McPherson. The motion being that Council receive and file as information the following delegations regarding regional update regarding community safety and face coverings. Anna Murray, Executive Director from the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, and Stephanie Hicks, Executive Director, Beamsville Downtown BIA. Madam Clerk.
Yes, please unmute your mic as I call out your name. Councillor Brunei.
Yay.
Councillor McPherson.
Yay.
Councillor Mikulik.
Yay.
Councillor Pachariva.
Yay.
Councillor Reimer.
Yay.
Councillor Rinjima.
Yay.
Councillor Russell.
Yay.
Councillor Timmers.
Yay.
Mayor Easton. Mayor Easton?
Uh-oh.
Oh,
I think Mayor Easton has lost connectivity.
I think so.
Madam Clerk, what are we to do in a situation? Do we go back to the vote, or do we carry on because we have quorum? I know at another meeting we waited and we went back to the agenda item when the mayor was able to reconnect.
We can hold if you'd like, and then come back and do that full vote again. I assume IT is working to connect her back in.
Okay,
But perhaps we'll hold this item and move along and then maybe come back to it just to receive those delegations for information.
perfect. So I'm wondering if it might be a good time to take a 5-minute break while Madam Mayor tries to get reconnected. 5 minutes.
All right, 5 minutes. I'm going to pause the live streaming at this time for a 5-minute break, at
Thank
which
you,
time
Madam
we should
Clerk.
be returning at 7:07. Thank you.